Good morning. The 20th day of June is the official date the United Nations has declared for International Refugees Day. But because of all the other observances that deserve our attention during June, our diocese has asked us to observe it today. This is a new date on our calendars. It was only last year that the first Refugee Sunday was declared. So let's begin with the definition of what a refugee is. A refugee is someone outside their country of nationality, unable or unwilling to return because of a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership of a social group. For resettlement to Canada, a refugee must also show that they're unable to remain in their country of asylum. Currently, there are 82.4 million forcibly displaced people worldwide, with almost half of them being under the age of 18, and the numbers only continue to grow. Can you imagine what it must be like? Well, moving by choice from one home to another is traumatic enough. All the planning, checking out costs and financing in the local schools. Then there's the packing and saying goodbyes and then setting up your household once again. But for refugees, far too often there is no choice. There is no planning, and the packing consists of grabbing what you can carry. So much left behind that is treasured. Perhaps even less than that, because the home is merely a pile of rubble on the ground or ashes drifting in the winds. Goodbyes are hurried and prayerful that one will meet again someday, somewhere. But in one's heart, one knows that it may not be. The miles, the borders, the camps, the unknown, and the uncertainties. Who still lives? Imprisoned, imperiled, wounded, families torn apart, grannies and babes to never know one another, siblings resettled half a world apart. Some cannot leave, some cannot stay, and those lost in camps, in graves unrecorded, known only to God. For some, the route is clear: a bus, a train, or exit across a border to safety. Documents in hand and relatives eager to sponsor. For others, well, we've all seen the pictures of people of all ages struggling along bomb-torn roads and clambering over the skeletons of bridges now collapsed into the running waters. Drinking from cloudy pools and hungry, they trudge on, unsure of where they're going and what lies between them and their destination of freedom. Fleeing from the enemy, but unsure whether he lies in wait along the roadway or whether bombs will fall from the skies. Yet there is no alternative, and fear drives them on. And along the way, the elderly and the unfit and the sickly sit down, unable to go any further. And there are those without the means to make the trek, and those with no hope and no place to go. And what is at the end of their urgent flight? For many, it will be denied entry, or women and children only admitted or allowed to leave. For others, refuge will mean living on the fringes of society, eking out an existence at the bottom of the economic scale. And yet, more will flee in leaky, overcrowded boats, many of which will sink, for there are always exploiters delighted to take advantage of the desperate. Millions of people seeking safety and a future. There are refugees from so many countries, the top 5 being Syria with 6.8 million, Venezuela with 5.4, Afghanistan with 2.8, South Sudan with 2.2, and Ukraine with 5.8 million refugees, and another 7.7 million displaced people within their country seeking safety from the invading Russians while unable to leave their land. Refugees aren't a phenomenon of the 21st century, though. There were over 40 million refugees in Europe alone after the Second World War. We called them DPs, displaced persons, and they were housed in camps largely in Germany, Austria, and Italy, and then resettled around the world and integrated into new lands. They and their children and their grandchildren are among your friends and your neighbors. They have enriched our land. As Christians, there is one refugee family whose plight calls across the centuries for us to care for those dispossessed, in danger, and fleeing their homelands. And that is the Holy Family. Remember when Herod decreed that all boys under the age of 2 were to be slaughtered after the Magi had failed to disclose the Christ child's location? Jesus was a refugee, fleeing for his life so soon after his birth. His parents, refugees in their care and love for him. They left behind their home and their families and their occupation. They left all and fled, just as refugees who are on the road today are doing. As Matthew recorded, so Joseph got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. After Herod's death, an angel of the Lord instructed Joseph to get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. So Joseph got up, took the child and Mary, and went to the land of Israel. But when he learned that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and they went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets: the Messiah will be called a Nazarene. And that's the story of refugees of all time, those who cannot return home and seek safety and a future in another land. Some are able to return, some never can, and some choose not to. Thus, we Christians are indebted to Egypt for providing the safety and security of refuge in their lands when the life of Jesus was imperiled. How can we do less when others face such similar straits? Canada has long been a world leader in refugee resettlement and was the first nation to offer the private sponsorship of refugees program, which started over 40 years ago, when it was the churches who stepped forward to sign private sponsorship agreements with the federal government. While most refugees come to Canada with few, if any, financial resources to start their new life, other challenges also face them. They often have to learn a new language, adapt to a new culture, and are changing seasons. And yet, most of them will prove to be an asset to Canada. Despite their challenges, results show that refugees do not simply benefit from the safety Canada gives, but they embrace the opportunities provided to build a better life and become important contributors to our country's economy and diversity. And while we rightly take pride in our record of having welcomed over 1 million refugees since 1980, we're able to pick and choose who comes here. And we generally do select the educated, the English or French speaking, and those with the talents and trades we need. We are unlike states that neighbor the countries that are invaded. The prime recent example of outreach and welcoming in times of need is Poland, which simply opened its borders when Ukraine was invaded. They admitted over 3 million refugees, and in turn, the Polish people also opened their doors and their hearts to receive and care for them. Jesus calls us to welcome the stranger, to offer safe haven to those in need from around our suffering world. The very least we can do is open our arms in hospitality and helping them to feel safe and wanted in their new land. For those who feel called to do more, there is so much that you can do. ORA, the Anglican United Refugee Alliance, will welcome whatever you can do or have on offer. Refugees need housing, helping hands to deal with government and documents, cars and drivers to get them to appointments. Their children need to be enrolled in school and introduced to community centers and to hockey. The English language is a challenge for young and old alike, and there is nothing like talking over a coffee to develop those skills. Getting to know the city, the shops, the neighborhood, where to go for lovely walks along the beach or through the ravines is all part of a positive entry into a new community. Setting up a new home with nothing means that everything is needed, and a challenge with which you might be able to help. A check is always welcome in ORA because doing this work and putting together these supports is both time and resource consuming. What each and every one of us has to offer and we would be most negligent if each of us did not offer them up, our prayers for the safety of the refugees of the world and the hope that a safe haven will be found for all. So may it be. Amen. Most of us do not regularly give thanks for the blessing of having been born free in a country that is a refuge for others, rather than living in fear that one will need to seek safety from enemies from within or without. So this Sunday, let us look beyond our borders and welcome those who join us here.